Welcome, one and all, to the mystical world of Felbar. Adventures abound throughout this realm, and we appreciate the opportunity to regale you with some stories from these trails. These accounts are all based on actual RPG experiences that occurred within Adventures in Felbar. Some of these tales may be for mature audiences, while others may be for very immature audiences. We now present the sage Mikas Tumo from Tamel, also known as the Bard of Felbar.
Welcome to session Denali-28. Last time our heroes had decided to take on a quartet of hill giants sitting around a fire waiting to eat. Harris, the mage, opted to blast the ceiling with a lightning bolt, causing a plethora of stalactites to rain down on the enormous humanoids. We pick up shortly after the group charges into the cave to finish off the creatures. Thick dust obscured vision in all directions, and the sounds of battle filled the air. Each member of the group had chosen an opponent as the ceiling caved in and charged in after their foe. As the hill giants began to succumb to their injuries, the air began to clear, and the adventurers noticed that Omel and Phidias were dealing with the last giant on the far side of the cave. Grish and Harris gave the coup de grace to one hill giant, while Yolanda and Stance finished off the other two. Phidias the rogue sliced through the back of the last giant's knee as Omel buried his blade deep into the creature's chest. With all opponents accounted for, the fighter gave the Zenobian a thumbs up, but a tremor rocked the cavern. As the group looked up, they saw a fissure opening near the center of the room, and more rock began to fall. "Cave in!" yelled Yolanda Two-Blades as she began to retreat. Grish, Stance, and Harris followed her lead and pulled back. The gnome started to cross the field of battle, but was grabbed by Omel and pulled to the opposite side. The cave cracked open and poured several tons of rock down onto the floor. A quartet of adventurers had been knocked down to the floor and were coated in a thick amount of dust. Coughing, they called out to each other, but when Omel and Phidias's name were called, there was only silence. A light spell was cast, but the thick haze made it difficult to see very far. Grish walked towards the center of the room and found that it was completely sealed off. "Omel! Phidias!" But no answer came. The group looked at each other in stunned silence. After a few tense moments, Harris, obviously choked up, whispered out, "Oh my God, I killed them." Yolanda shook her head wordlessly as Stance began to inspect the carnage. Grish looked at Harris and replied, "You didn't kill them. Nature took them. You would not have had any idea that the ceiling would collapse after the battle. This is not your fault, wizard." Tears flowed down Harris's face, causing ripples in the dust upon his visage. Stance spoke. "I don't think we can dig them out. There is a substantial amount of rock here, and it goes all the way to the ceiling. I don't think they could have survived." Yolanda shot him an angry glance as he began to apologize. "I only meant that most certainly their death was probably quick. They may have not even realized the ceiling was caving in at the time." Harris wiped away his tears and gave a muffled apology. Again, his cohorts chided him for taking the blame where it was not due. After cleaning as much dust off as they could, they weighed their options. Grish pointed out that there was a chance the pair survived, or at least that runt Phidias. That jackass escapes damn near everything. Yolanda smirked and started to speak. "But Omel, he's not very fast." Stance then silenced them all. "Look, this is bad. This is unfortunate. We have to realize that these are the hazards of the profession we chose. None of us are happy about this turn of events, but let's face it, we are several hours underground and possibly in the middle of a giant invasion. We need to come up with a plan." The group nodded and went silent for a few minutes until Harris spoke. "The split! The split in the trail!" The trio looked at him dumbfounded, and Harris shook his head, trying to choose his words. "We made a choice a bit back. If Omel and Phidias survived, perhaps there was an exit. If there was an exit, Perhaps it connects to the left trail. If we go that way, perhaps we can find them. Grish looked skeptical. My friend, that is a lot of ifs, he replied. Yolanda and Stance also looked nonplussed. Harris looked to the ceiling, fighting back more tears. I feel responsible for this, and I would like to at least try to look. I think we should go down the left fork and see where it leads. If it gets too tough, we can turn tail and go back to Saydown. Grish, Yolanda, and Stance looked at each other with a doubtful appearance. The monk finally shook his head. Okay, my friend, we'll take a look. But if we run into more of these giants, we're lacking the strength to survive, and we will have to bail out. Harris nodded his affirmation, and the group pulled back to the split in the trail. Nearly 2 hours of descent later, the group paused for a rest. Well, the good news is we haven't found any more giants, said Harris. Or spiders, added Stance. How deep do you think we are? Grish shook his head and lit another torch. I'm not sure, but the air is getting stifling and we're starting to run out of torches. I can use another light spell, but we may want to consider heading back up, or we'll be in the dark, continued the Zenobian. Shh, came from Yolanda. I hear something. The group gripped their weapons and she edged her way towards a tunnel. Water. Running water. Her comrades followed her, and they soon found the source of the noise. A large chasm split the cave network, and a slender pillar of stone breached the gap, leading to another tunnel opening. The sound of water came from the gap, but could not be seen. Yolanda picked up a rock and tossed it over into the impasse. It was several seconds before a faint splash was heard. That is a long way down, remarked Grish. The party shook their heads in agreement, and Harris spoke up. Looks like we only have the one choice, and I hope that pillar can hold us. Who wants to go first? The group did a quick rock, paper, dagger, and Grish won. Well, at least if I get across, we know it will hold your weights. A second torch was lit, and Grish moved gingerly across the narrow rock bridge, nearly slipping over the side. After a tense few minutes, he reached the other side and waved the torch from side to side, indicating he had made it. Harris was the next up and began to traverse the stone bridge. The glow from the far side indicated that Grish had gone a short distance into the tunnel to scout around. Harris quickly yelled out, "Light!" as he was frozen on the pillar. The cleric returned to the landing with an apology, and the wizard continued his crossing. As he reached safely, a rock fell from the heights, careening off the stone wall. All four looked up and thought the same thing. Another cave-in. Stance grabbed Yolanda's hand and hoisted her up on the bridge. We're both going. If it held Grish, it will hold us. She nodded quickly, and the pair began to cross. Several more stones fell as Harris and Grish urged their cohorts across, and then the stone falling stopped. An eerie silence fell over the chasm, followed by a leathery, flapping noise. Looking up into the darkness, nothing could be seen, but the mage and the cleric yelled out, "Run!" Stance and Yolanda jumped off the stone walkway just as a winged figure swooped past them, snatching out a lock of the fighter's hair. "Into the tunnel!" yelled Grish.
We close out this episode now and give you our thanks for listening. Please subscribe to this podcast, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter at The Bards Podcast. For everyone in Adventures of Philbar, thanks for listening.